Hi, everybody. Hope you're all well. It is now 20 to 11, but the way I see it is it's Saturday, and also a lot of people are kind of thrown from maybe not working from home at the moment, and maybe people are a little bit more nocturnal than usual. So I said, why not? So say hello to me in the chat there. Give me a 5 by 5 if I'm live and all that, so I know, and then we'll plow on to some stuff. I'm also going to tweet out. I hope this is a pub. Yeah, this is public, I think. I'm just going to tweet it out just now. So bear with me. What I want to do is go through some of the new Burkean stuff. 5 by 5, nice one. Thanks, EJF. I want to go through some of the new Burkean stuff, which I kind of half intended to I half intended to kind of almost do it every night or keep with it a lot, but it's a bit too much. So I've just built up a few to take a look through, and then I want to talk about coronavirus as well. Hi Clashers, all in one. What is the crack? So yeah, I just want to tweet this out, but it's on my phone, and I'm signed out of my Twitter because I don't want my Twitter on screen. I don't want to accidentally look at DMs and expose people in some way or whatever, but it's not showing up. Damn, I want to tweet this out. If some of you guys want to tweet it out, if some of you are on Twitter yourselves, okay, I've kind of got it now. Sorry now if this isn't very professional. Just about got it. Okay, there we go. So, any crack from anybody in the chat there? Tell me what you think of today's news, or if you've heard anything maybe under the radar about what's happening with coronavirus. I noticed something interesting today, which is some journalist today said, who was it? I can't remember who it was, but they were tweeting angrily about people on WhatsApp sharing stuff. Kind of, when people share stuff on WhatsApp, they say, "Oh, my mate's my mate works in so and so in the guards, and he heard this kind of stuff. He heard they're going to have a shutdown tomorrow or whatever." And this journalist was going, "This is not true. The government have said something like it." Anyway, the point being, this guy was saying it's not true because the government told him, and he's a journalist, and he's going, "The government told me, and I'm a journalist, so there's no evidence that this is true." And I'm kind of going, the government's plans are clearly laid out in certain ways. I've heard certain things myself, but the government, hi Serena, by the way, the government, whatever plans they have, whether they are going to lock down on Monday or the next week or whatever it is, right? They have those plans made out, and the very point of those plans is that they are kept a secret until the moment they're enacted. So the idea that the government said it's not true and whatever, there's probably a lot more, and experience tells us that there's probably a lot more to be learned from going through these WhatsApp kind of rumors or whatever that you find. And kind of what I do is I will see those, and I'll kind of take them with a pinch of salt, but you kind of you judge how reasonable it is to start with, and then you look at whether there's any corroboration of this. You might hear it somewhere else, or that kind of stuff, and you can just judge as an adult sentient human being how true something is. So I can go, okay, that's looking about 80% likely at the moment, so I'll treat it with 80% legitimacy, with the caveat it might be wrong, but whatever. Play with information as it comes and kind of semi-entertain it. But these journalists freaking out, getting angry, and the government said it's not happening, and it's just so infuriating because the government have a vested interest of their own. And one could argue that, well, you should go along with the government stuff anyway in a situation like this because it's in the public interest and it's for the greater good that you don't tell people the worst of it or this or that, because people will all then panic buy it and everything else. I understand those arguments, but at the same time, the media are meant to be separate from the government and to challenge them. They're meant to have an adversarial relationship. And if you take that logic of, oh, well, you shouldn't, undermine the government on something, maybe with this case it is genuinely a severe issue or whatever, but you could extend that all the way down, and it tells you a lot about how Irish media, or any media, will generally, Western media, will report on their governments. It is a kind of favor-based kind of they do what the government kind of want them to do. And this is just maybe a hyperbolic, hey, Green Room, what's the crack? Just seeing you there. A hyperbolic, maybe this is an extreme version of it, but it's very telling. Because lo and behold, we will see, not tomorrow, on Monday or Tuesday or sometime soon, all of a sudden it will be lockdown, right? And you can make what you will of that. Like, is that, I'm not saying it's a bad thing that will happen, or that I'm not necessarily saying the government should be telling us that it's going to happen, because maybe that doesn't make sense from a state governmental kind of perspective, because you would have this rush for the exits or this kind of panic. But the media is the bit that interests me. And you could even argue that maybe the media should keep their mouth shut if they know, maybe. But then what I'm arguing with specifically is not just that the government don't tell us, not just that the media decide their own choice. I'm not going to tell them, let's say for my own reasons. But my point is that they go one step further, which is to police the ordinary citizenry and ordinary people who are sending each other WhatsApp messages and saying, have you heard this? I heard this and I heard that. And my friend's, husband, or my friend's whatever, or wife works as a nurse and she told me this or whatever, that they shouldn't be allowed to do that. You saw the very same thing in China, which is an interesting case, about rumors. They were setting up these laws that you shouldn't talk about rumors. It was kind of like an anti-rumor law. And it's the very same that, and I love the way, I'm just checking my phone for something that's relevant. but a Western liberal will hear the China thing and think, oh, here we go, Chinese authoritarianism. It's Orwellian, it's doublespeak and all of this. No, it's the very same thing here when they talk about, that's not true, that's fake news, that's not been verified by a journalist like me, and at the same time you have Philip Boucher-Hayes saying that he has heard of a case in Ireland right now, and this is relevant insofar as it's possibly true. I do give him benefit of the doubt. He knows somebody, hi Last Rugel, what's the crack? He knows somebody he knows in a hospital told him that they have a patient who is in their 20s, a COVID-19 coronavirus patient in their 20s, who is in ICU. So they are in their 20s and they have no underlying medical condition, which is quite a shocking fact, right? That's a big deal. I get that. And it's worth entertaining the fact that this could be more serious than just old people or whatever, right? But that's not really my point. My point is that someone was saying, hey, maybe you want to verify this with some proof. I'm good, Last Rugel. Thanks for asking, man. Or madame, I don't quite know. But somebody on Twitter asked him, can you give us a source for this or whatever? And he said, I don't have a source. It's a source told me this, but I'm a journalist, He was kind of like, I'm a journalist, right? So when he says it, it's all good because he's bona fide and he's whatever. But there are lots of cases all over the place, many from the US and all of this, inventing sources. Look at the, Donald Trump pissing on Russian prostitutes or whatever. The whole backstory to that, BuzzFeed and everything. They can make up sources willy-nilly. If you hand them the blank check to say anything they want, but once they say I have a source, they can say what they want. And every now and again, that will be abused, of course, for people trying to emphasize maybe their own point. If I wanted to say, I want a more nationalist country, let's say a reduction of immigration and a more, certain things like that. If I had that journalist power, I would say, oh, well, this happened and that happened and this is the case and that's the case. Maybe someone would get there. Boucher would argue his reputation is solid or something. But it's just that arrogance of a journalist to say, oh, I just pulled something out of my hole and I'm expecting you to believe it. But when somebody else does it, it's this kind of low grade, common as daisies kind of sharing things around on WhatsApp. I heard this and I heard that. That's the kind of impression they'll give to it, that as if it's these kind of low info idiots who are like sending each other scare stories on WhatsApp out of nowhere. There's no basis for it and it spreads. It's very much that Chinese authoritarian view of that kind of thing. And I just firmly believe that I'm well able to talk anyway, because I didn't intend to go into this and we're like a while in and this is just completely tangential. But yeah, I think most people I know, maybe there's the odd idiot, right? But that exists anywhere. Most people are able to look at something, a screenshot, let's say they got from a friend, and they go, oh, my friend My friend's wife works in a hospital, and she says this. They're able to absorb that about 60% and go, wow, that might be true. So my worldview is going to be not fully based on that, but it's going to be entertaining that kind of halfway along. And as time goes by, I'm going to semi-entertain it. And in 2 hours' time, that might become not true. And might go, oh, it's a hoax. And you go, oh, it was a hoax. Okay. I never was fully taking it on board anyway. I was just kind of semi-entertaining it. And, as often as not, maybe more often than not, a lot of these things do turn out to be true. And the reason it was on a WhatsApp group is because it was being kept secret by the government and by this and by that, for obvious reasons, right? So, like, just this idea of these journalists, like, losing their plot, saying you have to go through the channel, which is you look to me, the government tell me what the story is and whatever, and then morally policing people on shopping too much, or whatever, which is just kind of disgusting, because if you know many rich people, all the elites, you will know that a lot of people who are well off will either the urban kind of type, like a central urban type, will get a lot of their food delivered on at the back of a moped from a Brazilian, right? Like, twice a day, right? Because they have the money to just shell out for that. And that I think that can go on for a while, because if you think about virus, all they need to do is have a few chefs in the restaurant, a few guys on bikes, and then they just drop it at the door, no contact. That like little industrial or that kind of enterprise can go on quite a long time, because it's fairly low contact. So they'll have that no problem, for one. And then the other side of it is, the less maybe urban, but including the urban, are the people who buy kind of wholesale. They go to these wholesalers and they have a big house and 2 or 3 garages or whatever. They have a big space. So they buy, they're like, I'm not some dope who goes shopping every week, and buys one of whatever. I buy it in bulk at a good economy of scale, of course, because they're clever and shrewd. And I have a garage full of whatever, mounds of stuff anyway. Frozen meat, maybe some of them even go hunting, right? Which actually is an okay thing, but they store, and they do that for different reasons. And so a lot of them will have 100 packets of toilet roll anyway, just because it's like you're going to use it. You're going to use it unless something very strange happens. And so why not just get loads of it? Oh, and the key reason as well is because you have loads of cash up front. You have loads of money to spend on, whereas ordinary people are kind of week to week. Because logically speaking, it would make more sense to buy wholesale and stock it up. So a lot of them will have that anyway, which pisses me off. I'm just going to check in on y'all's chat now to see what the story is. If I do go through, which I think I will, some of the Burkean videos, I'm going to have to do this thing again where I unplug my earphones, play the audio from my laptop, and put the mic up to it. I hope that's okay. So that was my rant about journalists and all that kind of stuff. And my other problem is, just a sec now, sorry. Muted that. So I hope I did anyway. You can let me know in the chat. Had a little bit of a... Never mind. Anyway, so yeah, the thing with coronavirus. Okay, so you can see my screen share there, right? Someone says spot on. It's funny because the chat is slightly delayed, so it's kind of just from my perspective. I watch, and I still do watch a lot of streams. So just if you haven't done it, yeah, you have that delay. So I'm kind of going spot on. Which bit? I'll assume in general, but yeah, that was Sean Mack. But the other issue I have, okay, so to my point with the coronavirus thing, where should I start? Where should I begin? Okay, it's this. If you're looking at my screen now, you should be seeing this. Okay, I'm seeing a slight delay here now. Sorry, just bear with me. Okay, so anyway, I shouldn't be looking at that. There we go. Okay, so it's this person from Italy. Now, I don't really speak Italian so well, as in, by which I mean I know 3 words, one of it which is ciao. But I can kind of get the gist. And it's clear, it's made clear what he's talking about here. This guy is looking through the obituaries of an Italian newspaper from Bergamo near Milan, or in Milan, somewhere in Italy, in the hotspot of the crisis right now. And he's looking through the obituaries, and he takes a February from, or he takes a February, he takes a newspaper from February. I'm not high, I swear. He takes a newspaper from February and looks through the obituaries. And then he takes one from just the last week, same newspaper, March edition, and looks through the obituaries. And we'll see in a sec what the difference is. There's a massive difference, right? And I had been considering this because I spoke to Simon Harris last night, not the Minister for Health, the British Simon Harris. He's a writer, author, and activist, and that kind of thing, living in Spain. And I was just talking to him about coronavirus in Spain and all of that. And the reason I wanted to talk to him, and I want to talk to more people as well. I want to get kind of a brain check on this to figure out what other people think. Is like, okay, there's the full-on conspiracy theory. It's fake. It's a hype. It follows the usual model of conspiracy, whether you'll believe it or not. But it's kind of like the state of some description, the global state, the whatever. Creates a crisis, and then they give you the solution for crisis, and therefore increase their control over humanity, right? And there's that side of it, and then there's the other side, which is this is just a virus that broke out through a bat or whatever. It spread through countries, and it's hard to control, and it is just kind of what it is. And I just want to explore the entire range between those and kind of go, because I'm inclined to just believe it is what it is, but I like an open mind, because I know how capable the powers that be are of lying and suppressing things. So I want to, my rule is just to always keep an open mind, just keep an open mind, right? No matter what. So that puts me in a little bit of an issue with this coronavirus thing, where to stand on this. One of my things I was going to use to calculate it was to say how many people would die in Italy in a random day. So if you look at the death rate for 2018 and you just break it down according to population and then divide it by 365 to get a day's average death rate in Italy in normal times, and then compare that to death rates now, it's actually a difficult thing to calculate, because you would need to compare the death rate of, let's say, yesterday in Italy, and then you would need to separate coronavirus cases from all the other deaths to know with certainty, kind of thing, because that's what I'm looking for, is a certain fact to prove it's happening. And I actually believe it. I don't need convincing, but just in theory, and for other people, I want to find a way of convincing that can't be kind of ascribed to, oh, well, that's just this or that's just that, a way that is bulletproof and says it's happening. So that I know, and so that other people know, what is a method that is sure. And no, you'll never convince everybody. And it isn't my game to convince people necessarily, because I'm myself and trying to convince myself on this, or prove it to myself, see what the story is. So I found this on Twitter, and it's just very, it's very stark, it's very visual, and it's very simple. You could do stats all day long, but this is actually using two newspapers who use an objective measurement. It's not a political thing or whatever, and they just report obituaries, and that's kind of it. I'm going to take out my headphones now so you have the audio from this. It's a guy speaking Italian anyway, but it's just for effect. How's chat? I'll just have a little look before I play that video. We need to have an open mind on it. Sean Max says, I agree. But so here's the Italian video. So it's March to February, the same newspaper, the same obituary sections, just 1 month apart.
Buongiorno cari amici, così solo per darvi un'idea di come siamo messi, l'Eco di Bergamo domenica 9 febbraio, una pagina e un qualcosina.
Okay, so there's 1.25 pages of obituaries from February. And now we see March.
L'Eco di Bergamo di oggi, venerdì 13 marzo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 e 10. Una semplice influenza. Grazie.
So he's kind of joking there at the end. He's like saying, he's kind of saying like, oh, it's just the flu, bro. You know, so you have 10 pages worth of people dying of that in March and in February. Now, for the skeptics out there, I just want to ask you or them, what's the story there? Like, how do you explain that? How can you explain that? Someone on Twitter said to me, oh, well, maybe they're working in the flu scores as well. I think maybe it's somebody who wants to cling to this belief because they've been told by someone that it's nothing and it's a plot. But maybe they're adding in the influenza numbers to up the score. And it's like, no, obituaries are just obituaries. Like, in general, it's all the deaths: murder, cancer, heart attack, car crash, whatever, right? That's what obituaries are. They're an nice objective measurement. Now, unless this person printed a fake newspaper for March, right, or whatever, my question is, how do you explain that, right? This coronavirus, this COVID-19 virus is real. Unless I'm living in a fantasy world and I'm not even real or something. If you have any kind of reasonable standard of evidence here, then the thing is real. It's happening. I spoke to a doctor in Italy a couple of days ago, and he was telling me about the triage they have to do in army camp hospitals and all of this, right? Now, unless he was because I don't know him well, unless he was a kind of crisis actor, and everybody else is too, and this newspaper was printed from scratch, then it is real. Now, you can question, was it released from a biolab from China and all of this stuff, all you want. And maybe it was, you know, and that's something we can look into. I think it should be backed up with evidence. It's just me, but or some kind of evidence of some description, some kind of reasonable standard. But you can think that all you want. But the fact that there is a virus that kills people is real. That is happening, right? And I don't scold people for having their own opinions. And I'm not an institutional guy or a kind of a institution defender. And I'm skeptical and I'm open-minded and I'm mistrustful of the state. And like I say, institutions. But this is happening. There is no real evidence to say that it isn't happening. There's tons of evidence that isn't just what the media told you. There's other ways. I spoke to a guy from Italy myself. You look at the people who died here. My problem is not, you know, if the conspiracy theory says that, hey, this was planned and it was released for that, then that's fine. But I'm getting older people who I know from various things, political and activist things, and, you know, that kind of thing, right? And God bless them. I don't question them. I don't castigate them for being skeptical. They should be skeptical about things. But what they're saying to me is, oh, do you really think this is real, or is it all just a big panic? And I can see that they got that from certain individuals out there who are political and on the scene and stuff. And I'm not like throwing shade, but, you know, you have to have evidence for these things to some extent. And if people's lives depend on it, then you need to be kind of careful. And I know they say that about the HPV vaccine or something like that, but that genuinely there is a bit of a debate to be had about that either way, right? There really is. Like, is it necessary for the amount of people it saves, the risk reward? Chile and Japan banned it on the balance of things. They decided to, or at least stop recommending it. There's something to that, but whether there's a global pandemic which shut down the Chinese economy, bear in mind that China has, you know, a low regard for life, right? It doesn't value life very highly, right? It sees it quite cheaply. And they shut down their entire industrial economy for a month and quarantined like 750 million people. I don't think they do that because they care. You know, they're not squeamish about one life here or there. It's because a lot of people are at risk and a lot of people could die from this and get sick. And if you get sick, you can't work and all of that, right? What is it, 10-20% end up in ICU? My problem is not coming up with theories as to what might be behind this. It's just when you make some people think that it might not be real at all, it might not exist, you know, which is kind of like different from the HPV thing, because nobody is saying in the HPV thing, the skeptics about that vaccine are saying that cervical cancer doesn't exist or it doesn't happen or something like that. Don't ever get a check or whatever. That's kind of like the correct analogy for this. which is to get it into people's heads that, oh, this is just like the flu, therefore you need to worry as little as you do about the flu, which is to say you don't really do anything or think about it. No, I don't want kind of people who are naturally a bit radical in their politics and like this kind of counter story about things, who are a little bit older, even though you don't need to be old to get trouble from this virus. I don't want those people kind of marching into town, marching into shopping centers, touching things, go, I don't need to wash my hands. I can take a natural bit of my immunity. It's good to build up your immunity, to not so much wash your hands. And generally speaking, there's a point to that. You don't need to be sterile about everything. Some of these things are good for you to build up your immunity. And people might take that attitude and that kind of staunch, like, I'm not going with the crowd thing, and go out and be touching things or be not washing their hands. This is all just NWO stuff, whatever. And get sick and die. And I don't like that, right? Because again, the bodies are piling up in Italy. We had, is it 425 people in the last 48 hours died? 250 yesterday. That they're not making that up. A conspiracy that strong couldn't last. So I don't know. That's just kind of how I feel about it. Again, I don't like to kind of shame people into not having a heterodox point of view, because that's what the establishment does. Like, oh, you're saying this, therefore a person statistically will die or whatever. It's like, well, it's more complicated than that. But so I'm torn. I don't want to do this. I don't want to sound like the Times or like one of these activists, these government activists, or like what are they called? What's that news company called that harasses people? They're a research news intelligence agency. I actually did a video on them, and I can't remember the Storyful, that kind of stuff, right? Storyful is what I was trying to think of. But I don't want to sound like them. But in this case, it's just a little bit different than that. It's a little bit different, right? It's more complicated, and things aren't simple. Like where you're saying this, so you're sounding like them. No, I'm not sounding like them because what I'm talking about is a little bit different from what they talk about. And it's just, listen to elderly people who follow dissident politics and maybe are skeptical of a lot of things because a lot of things they're told aren't true. So they have reason to be skeptical. It's like, look for a couple of weeks anyway, see how it pans out. Wash your hands, avoid crowds, eat well as much as possible, right? If you can find anything in the shop, but eat well, don't stress out, sleep well, the usual stuff, right? Keep yourself healthy so that if you get something, first off, you try not to get something by washing your hands. But if you do get it, try to be in a little bit of a bulky state, a little bit of a strong, dynamic state, so that when you get it, there's enough of you there to kind of ride through that thing. It can take a chunk out of you, but there's a bit more of you there. You're strong enough when it comes. So what I would say is, even if I haven't convinced you with this Bergamo piece, which seems to me like a really simple, elegant way to say that this is true, whatever's behind it, who knows, but this is true. The virus is happening, and it does spread through hands, and it spreads through the ways that we're told, right? Obviously, that's how viral bacteria, whatever the fuck it is, right, spreads. So just heed that. Go along with the mainstream on this a little bit for now, right? And if it's not true, if I'm totally deluded on this or whatever, then fine. It's just washing your hands, right? It's just because the thing is, the people that, and I'm not some kind of big leader or anything, right? But some people, someone says Truman Show, Garrett. I hope I'm not the Truman Show. I don't know why that could be referring to either side of the story here, I suppose. But my point is that, little virtue signal here, right? Is that some people, a limited amount of people, whatever, I'm not being, pat on the back stuff, but some people, because I make videos and I show up to things and I do Twitter and all that stuff and write the odd article, people will kind of listen to me or recognize me because I have my face, right? I'll see those people at a protest here and a protest there, and they're really, really nice people. Some of the best people you will meet at these things. Some people say you meet some of the most kooky people as well. There's a bit of truth to that, right? But that's fine. It takes a certain personality to some extent to kind of get into dissident politics, and you meet some of the most lovely people, some of the most sentient, lucid kind of people. It's not all mad hatters, right? There's some really lovely people there, and I've met them on several occasions. And sometimes people send me an email, and sometimes I'm not so lazy that I actually write back and all that. So for anyone, anyway, I'm rambling. But my point is, I do kind of care about these people. So when people listen to me for a thing I say or a thing I tweet or a video, or they come up to me at a thing and say, I saw your video, I enjoyed that video, I love your channel and all that, and I meet them a couple of times, I go, this person's kind of like my friend a little bit, you know? So I don't want them put at risk, because you're trying to be so edgy and so hot take that everything is fake and everything is fake. And in this case, it might not be fake, and they die when, let's say they're elderly, right? They're more at risk if they're elderly. When people say, oh, well, you know, oh, it's just the elderly or whatever. And I was saying to Simon last night, no, an elderly person, now, even if they're a vegetable, that's fine, right? I'm not against, you know, I'm not saying anything bad, but like, you know, a lot of elderly people aren't in a vegetated state, right? They're pretty lucid. Twice I've used the word lucid. I will find another time to say it, but they have accumulated 75 odd years of knowledge and wisdom and kind of calm. And I often feel like when you speak to an older person who you kind of click with, there's a little bit of a maternal or paternal instinct there among them, you know, they're elders, and they talk to you and they tell you stuff, and you could tell them about your problems. You could tell them, oh, you know, I'm really worried about this or whatever, and they can tell you something very valuable. So they're important. Also, there's the thing, oh, they've worked hard their whole lives. Fair enough, right? But also they're just really valuable. But, I mean, you know, they matter. And if they were to die because of this, which people are dying in their droves in Italy, you've lost something very important. You've lost, and people say, oh, well, they're old anyway, they'll die. Well, they might die 5 years later. You've lost 5 years of valuable wisdom and humanity there. And just on the issue of telling people that it's fake news, that's just, I know I'm rambling. Someone said I'm allowed to ramble, thanks. But I mean, you have to be, it does frustrate me because you have to, if you're saying something is fake, you have to qualify it. Like, for example, there would be nothing wrong with when the coronavirus thing comes on the scene to start with. You start by saying, I'm very skeptical of this. I'm very skeptical of it, but we'll see how it pans out. I think this might just be like the flu, but we'll look into it. We'll keep track. We'll keep an open mind. And you know what? Wash your hands anyway, right? Be careful. Look after yourself. Just a little bit of that would be fine. But the reason it annoys me is because I'm getting people messaging me. And by the way, if you're a person who messaged me, I'm not annoyed at you, or I don't think you're silly or any of that. But I've got a few people message me who I know where they're coming from. I know who they're coming from, that type of thing. What kind of circles we're talking about. And they're going, do you really think this is a thing? Do you really think this isn't just like the flu? La da 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 da. And they sound like they're torn. And I'm like, guys, you should not be torn at this point, okay? You should be careful. You should be staying away from people like in large crowds and all of that. You should be looking after yourself, mind yourself. And the whole point is to, you know, it's a difficult situation actually, this. Can I just get a word from the chat just now? If you're sick of me talking about coronavirus, I'll stop, but I have a few more thoughts on it. Plenty of bog rolls, someone says, yeah. Yeah. Just let me know if you want me to, let's say, move on to the Burkean thing. Someone says, keep talking, keep going. Okay. I'm going to keep, the thing about coronavirus is I've had some, okay, cool. I've had some kind of second thoughts on coronavirus, whereas there's the political side of me, the kind of, what you say, the scheming, not scheming, that's a bad word to use about myself, just the kind of more savvy side of me, right? We know what politics is, where you want to, everybody does this, far left, far right, far up, far down, center right, center left, whatever, right? Technocratic centrism, everybody does it. There's a little bit of a crisis happens and people will start to say, how can we use it to our advantage? Everybody does it. There's a terrorist attack. Was it a white nationalist in America school shooter? Was it a Muslim? Was it a this? Was it a that? No point denying it. That's what people do, right? And I'm looking at this thing and the obvious answer is, well, immigration, yeah, we should shut down the border and all of that. And bear in mind, what I'm about to say is not counteracting the fact that the border closure would make sense, because as I will show you in a second, a lot of countries are doing it. Denmark, Norway, Spain, I think, the US, Irish people can't travel to the US, and more power to them, right? But there's when Simon Harris, the Minister for Health, who I despise, I don't like him, right, from a distance anyway, I don't like him, said, oh, it would make no difference shutting the border. I was like, how can they tell us such an obviously untrue thing when most of our cases are from Italy? Now, in one sense, that is obviously patently untrue. It's like all these cases, like 95% of them are like due to travel with Italy. But I've just had a little epiphany where I kind of go, maybe there is some truth to it because, and tell me if I'm being too basic, correct me in the chat, but there's a virus which is, the cat is out of the bag in the world now. Everywhere in the world, it's out to some extent, right? So the idea that we build up the fortress now, no one comes, no one goes, and then we do social distancing and tracing in Ireland, and we basically eliminate the virus, right? And it rages on throughout the world for months and months and months and months. Now, even the biggest closed border nationalist will say that at some point you kind of have to have some travel, right? You could do it for a month or something like that. And I'm not talking about mass immigration here. I'm just talking about travel and the smallest amount of immigration, whatever, standard travel. At some point, you have to kind of lift that up again and get the economy and industry back going, or else there's nothing for us to live on or whatever, right? Then what happens? Because it's still been going around the world, and all you would need is one case to return back into Ireland, and it kind of, we're back to like 2 weeks ago, where we have our first case, which is going to turn into 10 cases, which is going to turn into 100. You'd be kind of back there. It would kind of be Groundhog Day again anyway. So in one sense, stopping it all together with the mindset that I can just stop it in perpetuity. Like if we stop it now, it will just die in a month's time and it's gone. And then we've, wiped the sweat. We dodged it, right? It's not really a case of you can dodge it because it's out in the world and it's not going away short of a vaccine, but that's years off and people don't like vaccines and all that, whatever. But, in a way, there's some validity to what Harris said because I think it's kind of the English model of the herd thing, herd immunity and all that, right? To some extent, I think people who are maybe non-political, maybe the health experts and stuff, people who know this stuff really well, look at a thing like this, look at computer models and everything else and go, this thing is happening everywhere, whether we like it or not. People are going to get it, X amount of people. Some people say 60% of the population, whatever, are going to get it. So therefore, they just need to get it. There's nothing else. It's just nature. That's just what is going to happen, and there's no point trying to beat around the bush. So if it's going to happen, we're back to that thing. You will see this. Someone says infighting in the chat. I honestly, I don't know, like work away, do it. But I feel like going to the source though, because I kind of want to know what it is. But it's whatever. Look, if anyway, God, what was my point? Oh yeah, so this herd immunity thing kind of makes sense, and the question then obviously is, you have this curve, and maybe I should have done a graphic. You can look this up, maybe flattening the curve. If you look up flattening the curve at coronavirus, you will find this. It's the idea that it can all happen in one peak, and when it happens in a peak, you crush your healthcare system. Once you do that, society starts bursting apart at the seams, which I know some radicals might want, with reason, I suppose, but that's what happened. Whereas if you can flatten it out over a long period of time, it remains within the threshold of what a healthcare system can handle. And when that is the case, the death rate itself will go down because they can give more people ICU treatment and ventilators. Therefore, far less people will die. The death rate isn't just depending on what the microbe does in your body or whatever it is. It also depends highly, highly on how much treatment you can get and how much human input and healthcare technological support and whatever you can get. So therefore, you do much better to stretch it out over a long period of time. So there might be a school of thought that says, hey, maybe we let some of it in now, let it come. Kind of like if you watch 300 or Game of Thrones or whatever, they're standing in a formation for battle and there's this horde running at them. And the normal human instinct would be to run or to move to the side or run at them or something like that. Whereas the actual logical formation is to say hold, 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 right, until a certain moment, and then it makes sense to go. And maybe that's some of the thinking behind it. I have to give the devil their due, whether it's Fine Gael or the EU or America or whatever. If that's their point of view, then that's it, and it might actually make sense. I mean, and you can say, oh, I want to separate the wheat from the chaff, and I want to turn society on its head and stuff. Well, you won't be saying that if you're on a field hospital bed, like gasping for breath, right? You won't. Sorry, you just won't feel that way. But so that might be some of the logic to it. And I think the idea of saying it wouldn't make any difference and kind of half telling the public that, but maybe, unless I'm mistaken now, assuming I'm right, half telling the public that by saying we can't, it would make no difference, but not explaining kind of it honestly and straight up why. Just to say, hey guys, we're pretty much all going to get it, a lot of us, and we just need to, when let it come this far, then try to mitigate it, then try to contain it a little bit, then let a little bit more, and at some point we've all kind of, a lot of us have gotten it, and then whatever. You know my point there. I don't get why a state can't just come out and say, hey, this is what we're doing. You can blame us if you want. You can say our healthcare system isn't good enough. You can point the finger at us if you must. But here's just the fact of what it is. No healthcare system, if it gets a peak spiral of cases happening at once, is able to deal with this, no matter how good it is, right? So here's where we're at. This is what we need to do. We need to just let it come to a certain extent and then stop it. And we're going to need some kind of compliance. And this is why. This is why. And it's hand on our heart, it's true. And it's complete full transparency. But then on the other side, you have these kind of, from what I hear, governments are informed by these kind of mass psychology consultants who kind of tell them how to break it and how to do this and that. I don't know what to make of that. Maybe it's just me as a guy, and I imagine a lot of you too, who are kind of news junkies and political and cultural kind of savants, will what you just want to know the truth, and I don't know, and then I don't trust, top-down institutions anyway, as a general rule. So it's kind of hard to accept that. I don't know. I was going to move on to another little point about Corona. It's about that. It is just that theory of like trusting the government to do a certain thing, or whether they should be transparent. I do fully believe transparency would be better there. Just tell people what's up. And that mass psychology thing, I would love to know what their kind of, if I could just see what, like, what's the theory on that, kind of what, to not tell people. Oh yeah, that's the point I was going to make there, guys, is that if any of you have noticed the shocking gap between, like, the people I was talking to who are kind of maybe watching now, some of you and all of that, knew this weeks ago, had all of this envisioned, even done up their own little kind of DIY charts of like growth rate, and they turn out to be true and all of that, and go buy some of this stuff, go buy some of that stuff, prepare for this, prepare for that. Turned out to be completely true. Meanwhile, the government were telling everybody, it's fine, maybe it's just like the flu, it might not come to Ireland, we're in full control of it and all of this. And then I see normies in the last day or two, it's suddenly dawning on them, and some of them it's not even dawning on yet. And you just realize the gap between, if you do a bit of interneting, right? You read a bit online, you're a bit of a hound for the old Twitter and a bit of news and all that, and YouTube podcasts or whatever. So you kind of inform yourself in certain more thorough ways. It can be shocking sometimes to kind of interface with the average person who maybe catches the news once every 2 days and lives their life. And I'm not condescending on that by any means, right? It's probably a good thing. The gap, you realize there's just such a gap, because they're saying to you, did you hear there's like, it's going to be like an outbreak or whatever? And you're like going, because you're thinking 6 weeks ago, you were like, I thought everybody knew, in moments like this where there's a big issue, you really get to see that lag and that difference. More peace. This person, more peace, says, that's me, G, absolute fiend for info. Yeah. Well, you know what? That can be a good and a bad thing. Sometimes ignorance is bliss. Sometimes maybe you shouldn't have so much, and I'm not criticizing you. I'm as guilty as anyone. Sometimes you maybe should, it's like there's an unhealthy level to which you can consume content as well, right? But yeah, to my point, drink break. Yeah, it's just that gap between the average person and someone maybe like yourself who consumes a lot of information is scary. You're behind the government questioning what they're doing weeks in advance, and meanwhile the government tell people things, and it is a little bit scary how that is the case, how kind of under-informed people are, and how people only will receive their information when RTE News /Leo Varadkar / whatever says so. and that is the perception of reality to them as it comes, which would be one thing in an age of limited media, kind of, but in the age where the internet is right there, you can go check Worldometer, and there was this really good blog post by someone recently. It was like this, it was almost like a WordPress, like a kind of a amateur platform type thing, but it was someone who clearly knew what they were talking about. It went viral, it went everywhere, writing about how here's why you need to act now about the virus. I'll try to find it and link it afterwards. Or if anybody knows the one I'm talking about, link it in the chat. They anybody who was reading that and reading these little things that were going around knew ages in advance. But yeah, you're kind of thinking, can't you just, you know, it'd be one thing if it were 1950 where you had the radio and there was one channel from Dublin, RTE or whatever it was called. But you're like, you have a phone in your hand like half the day, you know, and you just don't know how to make that connection to a couple of sources. It wouldn't have to take so much time, but you just don't. You still end up taking the 2FM or the whatever news. That's a weird thing, actually, to discover that people are at that kind of level. And again, I'm not condescending. It's people have lives, people live different lives and are busy with plenty of different things and all sorts of concerns. It's not a patronizing or a condescending thing. It's just an observation of a certain phenomenon, which I find interesting. Now, so I'm going to get over the coronavirus stuff now, just go through a few little sources of just some news from today. And then, with your permission, I'll go on to the Burkean stuff, which I may or may not, because that could take time. Going through videos which themselves are like 15 minutes long and so I don't know. Maybe I'll skip through, maybe I'll not do it at all, whatever. But anyway, so you can see a screen share here with what do we have? Cases for today. Again, most of you as content junkies and all of that, right, will know this stuff. So I'm just going over the obvious cases today. What do we have? 156,000 cases. So it feels like a couple of days ago, and it was a couple of days ago, where it was like 100,000, 90,000. I remember that like it was yesterday, and it pretty much was, right? So anyway, down per country, new cases today, we have new cases in Italy are 3,500. That is a lot. And 175 deaths. Yesterday was 250 deaths. It fluctuates, but it's high numbers. Iran has high numbers. Who knows what the information is like coming out of there in reality. South Korea has 5 deaths. So they have contained it to some extent. But then you're back to the question of, well, isn't it just going to leak back into the country once they remove these measures? Because those measures can't go on forever. Or can they? Will we see a worldwide shutting, a kind of shutdown for like a year? What does that do? I'm not the economy, GDP, market line go up worshipper, but like things being shut down. I'm not talking about Dow Jones or like the kind of derivatives or any of that. I'm talking about genuine real industry, production of things that might be necessary. How long can that stay shut down for? Real Raven 2000 says, good evening, Gerald from County Galway. How are you doing? I must get back out to Galway. I was in Uachtarad for a while and I just about saw a little bit of Connemara, but I really didn't as well. I didn't see enough. Galway is, I know Clare very well. I know Mayo very well. I've been down to the fjord there, which is kind of Galway, but I really want to see the middle of Galway and like Connemara. Anyway, so yeah, Spain. So I spoke to Simon Harris yesterday, who's living in Spain, and it's blown up in Spain. Coronavirus seems to like these meds, or maybe it's just the fact that they're flippant about things. Oh, this is all nonsense. I think that's a factor, and also they're very tactile people, kissing and hands and this and that. I don't know, just a theory. The USA has a lot of cases. Now we go down to, importantly, where are we? Okay, so I will find it just, can't find it. It's around 129. Yeah, Ireland, 129 cases, 39 new cases today, which is a big leap. And an extra one more death. Someone has died. Someone who had maybe other health issues as well has died. So that's where we're at. It's growing rapidly. We're no different from the other European countries. We're going along the same trend. And just so you know, if you can you see my mouse? Damn, I think you might not be able to see it actually. Anyway, regardless, I'm clicking on the top right here. We have total cases per 1 million population. So it's a kind of a per capita measure, as opposed to measuring like China versus, Monaco, right? It's hard to figure out. This does that for you. It's per million. So Italy is number 1 now by a long shot. We have Norway is very, very high. They have shut their borders. Switzerland too. Took a lot of it from northern Italy, from Lombardy, and because their border, they're kind of like people cross over even for work and stuff. I think there, etc. Anyway, point is when we go down here, we get to Ireland, and I think Ireland is top 20. I'm not going to count it now, but we're top 20 already. So the idea that because it would be an easy mistake to make. Oh God, we have 129 cases. It won't be long till we're, Italy has 20,000, so we're a long way down. It sounds like a schoolboy error or whatever, but it actually mentally you might see those numbers and not consider it. So the total cases per 1 million is important. We're already getting up there. It's not like it's not an issue here yet. We have the same kind of, our numbers are going to go out of control like Italy's will soon. And I just hope our healthcare system can manage. Now, we have Norway has closed its borders. And again, a while ago, I said I kind of half agreed with Simon Harris that closing the borders would do nothing and all that. I meant that in a specific kind of broader context. In reality, yes, shutting them would be a good idea. I think rather generally about that. But especially now, shutting them clearly makes sense. We have enough cases now. If their idea is to let some cases in to get some herd immunity, I think we have enough now. I think we're good. Shut those things down. I want to see, are they able to do that? Do they have that within them anymore? We'll see what happens. Anyway, so Norway closed their borders. Denmark, the same. We have Trump has shut down travel from UK and Ireland, in addition to the rest of Europe now as well. We have, what else have we got? Spain to declare national lockdown. Spain to close its borders. And what is this? Oh yeah. So for those who don't know, any Twitter users out there, you will have seen this around the place, I think. Which Simon Harris someone was saying. The last Simon Harris I referred to was the health minister. It kind of does complicate things, yeah. Someone says the bad Simon Harris, Brian Brew says. But what was I on about? Temple Bar. So people on Twitter will have seen this, but for those, a lot of people aren't. Temple Bar this evening I actually went myself. I went there. I was passing through and I stopped to just have a little look. It was jammers full of people, jointed, right, with people. And I've been in those bars in previous times, right? You get your point. There's music, there's a session, plastic paddy stuff for tourists, but it's not all tourists. It's some Irish desperado lads going down there trying to pull an American student, maybe. P.S. I like you. So anyway, it's a sloppy, manky, overpriced affair. And this was going on tonight, no different from what I've just described to you, packed full of people. And I'm telling you, you will rarely be in a place as packed as this. I mean, really, like it's uncomfortable. Like you're like waist area. You're like, you can't walk around. Like if you don't want to be Me Too'd, you really have to walk around with your hands up, right, in the air, because if everyone's body is squeezed in together, it's kind of weird and rank. But that's how close it is. You're breathing into people's mouths, type of thing. And of course, people are shifting and everything as well, right? God forbid. But that's the environment you're in. It's almost like something you would invent as a way to spread a virus. So you would. And it was going along unchanged. And here we have it. This is just funny. Okay, so you have audio. It's just a kind of ironic fact of this. Right. Touching me, touching you. Good lads. Well done. It is actually, National Party had a tweet. I've kind of signed out of my Twitter because I'm afraid of exposing DMs or whatever, people's like private communications to me. But if I put it up here now, party Twitter. I should really be doing this on the other screen. I don't know. It's live. I don't want to open some notifications thing or blah, blah, blah. Anyway, National Party's Twitter. They retweeted yours truly, actually. And you can see my thing is blocked. This following media includes potentially sensitive content, which I never did anything wrong. I I don't share some kind of beheading of ISIS or whatever. I don't share even like fights or anything, like getting punched or some sexual explicit thing or some racial slurs or any of that stuff, right? I don't. Like that's one of my like calling cards. I'm pretty, like, some people give out to me for it, right? I'm fairly bland and kind of milk toast on my stuff. But yet they did this to me, which I think is ostracization, kind of to make you look weird, like you do share those things or like whatever, and just to reduce your engagement, because it's that one extra step kind of thing makes it less. If a thing might go viral, it's less likely to with this shite. And by the way, small note, I've been into Twitter's headquarters about it. They can't talk to you. I've messaged their like a support feature on the app, and no reply. It's very strange. I just feel like, hey, look, I'm creating, to whatever small extent, as a user. The users are what bring in the advertising revenue or whatever. There's some kind of like, it's like you are actually a customer in a certain way, even though you're not paying directly. And yet there's nothing there. Anyway, that's not important. I just took videos from today. God, there's so many barriers to watching this stuff. Just people, basically, I can't use the vocabulary I'd like because it's politically incorrect and whatever, but these dopes packed into a pub, and National Party said, sorry, I keep sniffling here. I hope I don't have coronavirus, you know what I mean? The basis of liberal Ireland is selfishness, partying like there's no tomorrow, chasing instant highs and quick profits, renting houses to foreigners, four per room. Oh yeah, good luck to Brazilians self-isolating as well, by the way, in their like 50 to a room bunk beds and all of that. And the landlord like rubbing his hands and like, his sweat patches and like sellotape fivers and greedy, picking up pennies, Gambine. Building flats for single people and not families, putting autonomy over life, sacrificing the future for the present. And what I said as well, personally, on my Twitter is a review of my own Twitter, a narcissism like squared, cubed. What I said was, what did I say earlier that was really cool? Oh yeah, just a picture of more arseholes inside in this pub. I basically said, fuck these people. It's our parents and grandparents who will die for your sloppy, overpriced night out. And that's what it is. These people, it really is quite sickening that they don't care. Because they'll probably be fine. Most young people probably would like get through it as a bad flu or whatever. But you'll kill. Think of your parents, think of your grandparents. That's what we're talking here. And these scumbags, these like, I can't say it. The language, the YouTube algorithms and stuff. These peahounds and like desperados and just kind of idiots. The type of guys, the lads who wear like the Christmas jumper at Christmas from Pennies, like, oh, I'm doing the thing as well. I'm out in the pub, slobbering and like hand up in the air for Mr. Brightside, and trying to desperately like some girl looked at him, so maybe he can like score her. And even if he did, then on the other hand, he'd like ghost her the next day. But she won't even score him. So it's all like layers of patheticness and pointlessness. And you're paying like €10 a pint to some gombeen who's like, oh, they, So anyway, these people make me ill at the best of times. But now it's even worse because they're actually dangerous. Garrod, the party animal, someone says. What did I do? I'm just talking. I'm just describing what it is, right? But yeah, it's just annoying that. So anyway, the last thing, and I know it's late, but I'm not particularly tired, and it is Saturday, and there's things are thrown a bit. I don't know if you're off work or working from home or whatever. Unfortunately, people as well. It's a hackneyed point to make at this stage, but people who work in 2 secs there now. Yeah, people who work in hospitality and all of that, they're screwed. Like they don't get to own working from home. But anyway, yeah. So if you have any, if someone says keep going, love, more peace. I'm guessing more peace. You're female. I hope so. Anyway, if you're not, that's cool as well. Like don't worry. It's just your choice of words. But yeah. I don't know what's going on with the chat. There could be some kind of crisis over like like a minor, like inane dispute, like about a certain particular thing. Maybe not to insult it, like, or whatever, but usually these arguments are like that. I'm sorry, but anyway, yeah. So if you have energy, we could go through some Burkean stuff for the crack, and I really don't think I can go through it all because some of the videos are long. But we could take what we have. See, there's these YouTube videos. This one's 11:25. This one's what the longest one is like 20 minutes long. We're not going to go through all of that. Do you want to go through some Burkean? That's funny chat, lads. Chippers are where you catch corona, says laughing man. Yeah. Will I do the Burkean stuff? Someone give me an green light on the Burkean or a red. Okay, I get it, yeah. Okay, so a lot of this, again, is going to be just me watching the video itself and just that being it. I have seen, unlike the last time, I have actually seen some of these, which kind of is a bit of a balls because the last time I genuinely didn't watch it, and it's fun to actually react that way because you can't kind of. Oh yeah, Michelle Byrne is gone. That's the case. Yeah, I could show you there now. So as you can see, if on screen, USI deputy president resigns after Burkean controversy. Now I wonder how long that'll last because I feel like there'll just be this hand come down from the elite kind of world and be like, we will not let a scalp be taken. We'll put her somewhere cushy or take care of her. I get that feeling, sadly enough. But for now, anyway, and it is on her record. And I'm not one of these sickos who takes pleasure in like dragging someone down. You know, as I described in one of my previous videos, if you work in McDonald's, the idea that you get fired because these guys harass your employer is wrong. This is different. Her job is politics. Her job is this kind of thing, and she was abusing that. So she was in the arena for this kind of stuff, and so was her job. So she's resigned. Yeah, they should all be gone. Like, I mean, some of this stuff is unreal. So, anyways, I suppose if you, yeah, I watched a few of these anyway, not in great detail, so it will kind of be a bit new to me. And let's say the Tate Donnelly one here, you can see. I listened to that. He sounded a bit innocent and naive to me. Now, he made a few fuck ups, like he said some bad stuff or whatever, but he just sounds like a small fish and a kind of like a silly young fella, basically. And it's whatever, you know, type of thing. And then the Sean Diarmid Kelleher things, I think that might be a funny one as well. Let's just go through it a bit. Feck it. Keep chatting away there, lads.
Hello, is this Sean Diarmid Kelleher? Is it? Yeah. Hi, my name is Irene. I'm just calling from the Twitter account.
Sorry, I put it on 1.75. You're never going to be able to hear that. It was on 1.5, maybe 1.25. So that means it's a little bit faster. The audio's a little bit faster. And if you can't hear that through the mic and stuff, who calls their son Tate? I don't know. You know what gets me, lads? Here's a little personal note from Gerald. First person Gerald. You know those people who call their... I'm sorry if this applies to one in the chat. You know these young ones who call their kids Jaden or something like that? It gets me. Anyway, Tate, I suppose, is the same too. So anyway, back to Tate at 1.25. See if, and just let me know in the chat. The audio is only going to be so good because it's coming through the mic. But if maybe the speed is making it worse and it's unlistenable or whatever, just tell me.
Fashion. Do you have what? Sorry. Yeah, perfect. Cool. Do you have a free few minutes to talk?
Okay,
well. Far right, IRL, direct action against far right, and just basically crippling them wherever possible. Obviously, one of the things we seek is sort of discrete relationships with people in journalism, civic society, and political societies. And going by the sort of DMs and your sort of, your sort of Twitter timeline, you seem like you could be a serious resource for us. So, cool.
Okay, here's the thing I'm going to do. I'm just going to start skipping through it because this setup, I know the guy who's interviewing here. I've listened to some of these videos. There's a little bit of setup. It's bringing it up. It's reaching a crescendo where you get them for the big lines where you say, do you want to slap some fascists and all this, right? So, it probably starts slow. So I will just take liberty to kind of skip through and hopefully I don't miss some of the good bits. If I do, look, whatever.
Sorry,
by the way, just go to the Burkean on YouTube. Like you can see I have there if afterwards you want to listen to them in full.
Like we come from more sort of the left background, but you're a member and actress with Fianna Fáil at the moment, yeah? Yes. What's your exact sort of position?
So this guy's a Fianna Fáil guy, and he's basically, I think, ratting out people in Fianna Fáil who he thinks are fascists and all this. Imagine Fianna Fáil gone beans and all that, right? But this little shite involved with them, it's just such a funny world, I hate Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael for one reason, but I've never thought of them as these kind of pencil necks and these kind of little shites, basically. But actually, they do have them. It's funny.
I know you mentioned you're sort of in Queens at the moment. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Threat to my life.
Okay.
I work with when I was chairperson of the there.
I think this is the guy who's half traveller, half Jewish, lads. He's what? Javeler. Give me a word in the chat for half Jewish, half traveller. He's I can't. It's sorry. I could be more fun in private, but I have to be on best behavior. I have a perfect one. That's a mix of two words, but I wouldn't dare now. But so yeah, he's half Jewish, half traveller, and he's kind of going, because of my history, I'm personally threatened by these people who want to cut my head off, at the first chance and all this, obviously. And of course, he would probably count me as the F word there. None of this is a neuroticism of a certain description.
Problems with Fianna Fáil, but you seem quite a sort of solid character. But any sort of contact bases or any sort of resources that you have just off the top of your head? Just any people who could be of help, or even sort of more sympathetic people within sort of Fianna Fáil or your sort of circles?
At the moment, I am currently, Fianna Fáil is currently very split, and there's people who stab each other in the back. So at the moment, Fianna Fáil is not in a very safe position.
Okay.
I'll reach out to people who I know will be able to question and see if they're interested.
Okay. And obviously, this is at your discretion, but one of the things we can.
I'm sorry, but someone in the chat just said Tyson Jewry. That is absolute winner straight away. You can't beat that. You just can't. Okay.
Sort of be a sort of safe conduit is, if, say there's more sort of bigoted or reactionary element to Fianna Fáil. Obviously, you're strong progressive credentials yourself. But if you want to sort of direct those kind of people towards ourselves.
I just want to note now as well that you see this as a theme in all these videos. The guy who does these stings, these honeypots, is so good at these little. Noel McDonald, what's the crack? The guy who's doing this honeypot is so good at the kind of psychological mind games. You see, if you ever see Darren Brown, the British kind of hypnotist-y kind of guy, whether you believe his things are fabricated or not, but to some extent this is true. This kind of stuff where you ask someone directions and all of that, and then you confuse their mind, and then you say, can I just get your wallet? And I'll actually link that, or if someone else wants to, Darren Brown wallet, it's very funny. But they kind of give you their wallet while they're flustered with all the stuff. And in a similar kind of little psych out type thing, what he does is just say to the people who are the subject of the sting or the honeypot, he says, well, I know you're legit anyway. I know you're not. I know you're not a dotty, or you're legit. I'm talking to a legit person here, and your credentials are pretty good and pretty strong, so I can trust you. You're not some kind of, whatever. And it completely throws the person from maybe their own skepticism that they should have. And it's so funny to watch it. And there's a little bit of flattery as well. So they kind of go, well, thanks very much. They get out there. So their mind is kind of dragged away from that place where they would actually use their common sense. So sorry, I'll just keep playing it.
We can kind of make inquiries or view any sort of evidence, screenshots, audio, just anything that's sort of
Oh, no, don't worry.
Yeah.
You protect my identity right there.
Oh yeah, we wouldn't be in this business. We wouldn't be in this business if we didn't. We want these people out. We made this very partisan line. Basically, if you point them towards us and can pass us on to the victim information, we can protect your identity and get these people kicked out of the party or, crippled.
That's true. Thank you so much. I'm glad to hear that.
So treason to his own party, as much as there's scumbags anyway, and whatever's mediocres, but he can, you heard it for yourself. He can pass names on from the party. Unreal.
No, there's a lot of this is a very big thing. Because I work with class council estate. I've seen a lot of people I grew up with slowly go towards the right wing. I managed to pull them out of that thing, but
Just within sort of over in itself, like you're happy to pass on but
Let's just go back on that because I think he says the working class.
This is a very big thing. I come from a working class council estate.
Yeah, so he says I come from a working class council estate, and and a lot of people drift towards what he calls fascism, right? What ordinary people actually in a normal society that doesn't have a top-down kind of propaganda going on, it's considered common sense. It is basically common sense, right? But a working class estate. So that's interesting, which I came from myself. So now you have here I am on YouTube spreading this working class. I'm not claim to be working class or whatever or any other kind of class, but that kind of hate, or whatever he calls it. But that's just interesting. Could he not just read something into that and just think, oh yeah, the ideology I have is a kind of a kind of top-down elite kind of bourgeois kind of sensibility that comes from a totally foreign kind of alien place and isn't the working class that he claims to be this left. Anyway.
Sort of we some things we're going to review from YFG, but would you have any sort of names off the top of your head regarding Burkean at the moment, Blair?
Like there was one former member, but he left
Okay, I'm starting to skip on here.
He's basically pro-Israel, pro kind of.
He's a right-wing bigot, essentially. Yeah, I think I know the type against these people. Obviously, what you're comfortable with, but still have this you're happy to have this sort of relationship with us.
No, it's I need to protect my.
But yeah, if any we protect your identity, pass on any sort of screenshots, we can kind of use against these people. Obviously, what you're comfortable with, but still have this you're happy to have this sort of relationship with us.
No.
In PvP, but it's interesting that you've been.
I'm just skipping through here a little bit, lads. We'll get to a more. We'll get to a more kind of stable video where I watch more of it in a sec. It's just this guy isn't a big fish and he's a little bit of a knobhead, anyways, and whatever.
Post-habiter rights, very prisoner rights. Gets a lot of. Investigate
prisoner rights. Can you imagine this guy in prison? My God.
What is a lot of stuff. He's very careful of what he says.
Okay.
He does post about African gangs.
Okay.
He talks about African gangs. Oh my God.
Any names like that, just pass on our way. Any sort of evidence that you're comfortable sending. Obviously, you're in a privileged position. We'll protect you.
Actually, for that matter, imagine what an African gang would do to this guy.
We know how this game works, basically. Okay, cool. We may have a sense of potential sort of direct action against sort of more sort of far right loyalists and the things in sort of Belfast. Obviously, it's whatever you're willing, but if we'll be masking up.
We'll be masking up
in sort of Belfast. Obviously, it's whatever you're willing, but if we'll be masking up. Hopefully, we will be masking up. But would we be able to call on you just to have you, boots on the ground to give these people slaps potentially, or obviously whatever you're. Cool.
Yeah, I'll be willing if it's as long as it's not in April, May, because I'll be called with exams doing that big massive.
Cool. It's so funny. He's only available as long as it's not April and May because he has exams. But outside of then, he'll be available for masking up and slapping people around, which I doubt. I mean, maybe this guy is a kind of maybe he's the kind of stringy, high power ectomorph, the kind of that kind of thing. But I doubt it. I think really the slaps thing would only happen if it was a woman on the ground who's already been kicked 20 times, and then maybe he might bash the fash, from behind in the kidneys type of thing. That's as far as I can see him going, But anyway.
You go to the left, throw out a few slaps, wherever, your history, your politics growth. So any sort of, it does sound like it's somewhat kind of unusual working with someone with Fianna Fáil. Would you have any sort of do you work full time with the party, or is it just student societies?
It's just a bit weird out.
One who's fairly high up in the party and fairly astute as yourself. Yeah.
Okay, so that was that guy. Pretty irrelevant. And then we have bugging students' accommodation. Now that goes on for a while, and I think it goes over Michelle Byrne. So what I'm going to do is transfer over, put you through now to a bit of about bugging, because I think that's really, that's kind of headline stuff here, and it's on their Twitter page. They have it. Oh yeah, so listen to this. This is bugging people's flats, guys. Now, when I think about it, there's a lot of these NGO people who would personally try to destroy me at the drop of a hat, right? And if I got a call from some nationalist, alleged nationalist, who said, hey, do you want to bug so-and-so's house, right? You can fill in the blank as so-and-so. You can imagine yourself, right? Do you want to bug so-and-so's house? I would, first off, I'd be clever enough to say, no, I would not do anything illegal. Just in the kind of optical sense, don't be whatever. But, don't be fooled in a honeypot sense like this. But in a genuine way, I would also be like, if someone said, yeah, we're going to bug his or her house, I'd kind of go, nah, like, you know what I mean? No, I could go into write an essay on why not, but just no, like, I'm not that, I'm not at that level. I don't need to bug this guy's house, like, so no. And what the hell, like, no, we're not bugging someone's house, Christ. So it's kind of crazy that this is being said by I think it's Michelle Burns. So what is she, the USI president? And I'm going to emphasize a lot for the rest of this video while we're talking about this whole phenomenon and this whole sting or honeypot or expose by Burkean. This is such a big deal, and it's not just a couple of students here or there, or it's not just one idiot or whatever. It's systemic. They've got it across the board. They've now got, as we'll see in a second, Laura Beston, the TCD Trinity Student Union president, and we've got Michelle Byrne, the USI president, and you've got more and more and more of other ones, the Equality Committee. It's all of them. It's not that it's someone, it's that is there anyone who isn't involved in this thing? And the other thing he does as well is when he's speaking to some of them, he mentions the other one's names to ask them, could he talk to them? And they're like, yeah, I know so-and-so well. So not only is it all of them, but it's all of them linked together in, there's the word conspiracy, actually conspiring with each other, black and white. And here's the other point, in case I forget to say it in a while, because maybe I should say this at the end or something, but I'll forget it, is that Burkean, I'm sure, are going to go. There are hints that there are people that they're going to be looking at in the next week or two who go much beyond student union, right, or higher levels. But even if we didn't have that, if you think for 1 minute that this phenomenon exists so thoroughly and widely in this kind of student far left in control body politic SU and all that stuff, if you think it exists so much there, and then once you get past SU politics and you get into real society politics, i.e. the government, i.e. the Shanid, i.e. sorry, the computer noise there, i.e. the Shanid, i.e. the president's office, and everything else, and the NGOs or whatever, right? If you think that for some reason between the student body politic and of course these guys we're looking at here are the ones who become those guys, and the ones who are those guys now were student union guys anyway. But if you still think for some reason that there's some kind of cutoff between the student world of politics and then it goes into the real world and everything changes and it's just completely different, you are sorely mistaken. We don't have smoking gun evidence for much of this stuff, but it's pretty damn obvious circumstantially that this is rife within our state against the far right. So if you say, I think immigration should be a bit less, I think Irish people shouldn't become a minority within the next 30 years, or at least they should have a say on that. I think that, common sense stuff, whatever, right? That there's an entire state conspiring against that world, a group of people who believe things similar to what I do, then you're sorely mistaken. It is a full-on, there is no way you could, if someone were to say, when you say that there's this whole state lined up against you and your type of people and your beliefs, that's a bit of a conspiracy theory. I'm telling you, you couldn't phrase it dramatically enough to even capture what it actually is, not to mind overselling it or overphrasing it. It is as big as you could phrase it and more. And there's no doubt about this. And this, somewhat proves it, unless, of course, you think after student life, these people just, the whole dynamic and interaction, which you hear so explicitly here, completely just changes. Obviously, it doesn't. Now, to my point, Michelle Byrne talking, this is the president of the USI, the entire student unionist thing in Ireland. This isn't some lunatic who's like got a bowl of cereal with cigarette butts in it. At 3 a.m, like going crazy online or something like that. This is the president of the USI. I don't know what will happen to her now, but all things going normal, she would have become what? A TD or whatever, right? These people are the ones who are kind of, what would you say? The ones who are put in these positions, the ones who say and believe the certain type of things they do. And what is the thing she says and believes? Bugging people's flats, blah, 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 people who are far right. So let's listen to it.
And just
this is, where we're booking a, potentially student flat, but like anything you guys can do kind of discreetly, either to amplify this or to even bail us out if this goes wrong, just not to copy. Well, we've your tacit support anyway, or your personal support.
Oh but how I promote that might be a bit difficult, because I'm already on a bit of a social media party fan, or not a fan, but a warning. But that way, for my support on my personal stuff at the moment, so I'm a little bit under the radar at the moment.
That's
but of course, and like I'll be telling people verbally about it anyway, and I have a couple of group chats that I might be able to get it.
You know what bothers me about her as well, and the others, they're the same as her, is that even in their scumbag, power hungry, power wild, authoritarian, I don't even have much against it. It's not authoritarianism in and of itself, really, because, you could argue that in various ways, like, for example, right now, authoritarianism would be good for the virus, right? But, her power mad thing, perverse ideology, even with that, she's still kind of going, well, I'll have to be a little bit behind the scenes and someone else will do it, so yeah, slap people around, right? She's completely fine for people to be slapped around for a belief. Like I say, I don't think Irish people should become a minority or should have a say in it. I think immigration should be less. I think men and women are different, right? And I say it openly. I mean, and I'm only talking about the most easy, lowest hanging fruit stuff, of course. But even that stuff, they will call you a fascist for, right? And if you're called a fascist for that, when we can all agree that that's normal, she doesn't mind you being punched in the face. Now, I know I sound like a primary school teacher here, but it's worth saying, you know what can happen when you get punched in the face, right? It's not definite, it's just low risk, but you know what can happen when you get punched in the face by someone who you didn't engage with, you didn't do anything wrong per se. You know what can happen? You can die. You can die, right? That can happen. I'm not like pearl clutching about it or whatever, it's like people have scraps and stuff. I'm just saying that she's happy to have someone hurt, break their jawbone, get kicked on the ground, and at worst potentially die. Someone who she doesn't know, someone who has opinions that in reality are normal. She's happy for that person to get hurt like that, right? But she doesn't want to do it herself, or she doesn't want to be, I'll have to keep a distance from that, I'll have to be here. That almost more than the scummy politics, the fact that she can have that position but still keep her powder dry, almost pisses me off more than anything else, actually.
Just two more questions. We're just touching base, but we're just aiming to bug the sort of flat and just ruin these YFG people, and just hopefully they'll never enter.
Bug the flat and ruin these YFG people. I don't like YFG people. I don't like Fine Gael. I despise Fine Gael, right? I don't want to bug their flats and ruin them on an individual level. Simon Harris for Adcom might be tempting and all that. But, I say that jokingly, but like really just, especially young Fine Gael, young people, come on, what an absolute scum bag of a person Michelle Byrne is.
Personal body politic, you're good with that. We'll sort of keep contact with you if need be.
Yeah, cool. And I'll send you over the email.
Yeah, cool. Anyway, we have. Let's have a look at Jacob Wolf, because a lot of people are interested in Jacob Wolf. How's everything going there, lads? By the way, am I long-winded? Should I speed up? Should I just get to the point? Whatever. Like, I do want to know, because in a normal social environment, I could see you kind of starting to like roll your eyes if I was talking too much or whatever. There's normal interaction, so I don't kind of know. So like, tell me, speed up, whatever. So let's get the Jacob Wolf video going.
So like devotion might contain that or not.
Man, this one is actually really interesting. There's a lot of interesting facts about this. Jamie Marigini, like Italian? I don't know. I said, keep going. It's all good. Okay, sound. Someone says, we're insomniacs. Keep going. Well, that's nice. I'm glad I can help you in your time of need, even if your time of need is 12:05 in the morning. I often do. To be honest, I know it's so unhealthy. Doctors and whatever, and experts in sleep therapy or whatever will say, "Oh, this is like stupidly bad." But I kind of will tend to like go to sleep at one in a way. I think a lot of people go to bed with the radio on traditionally. Some people used to do that, just nice and low. It's a way of like reading maybe reading a book when you go to sleep. So maybe it's handy for that. Anyway, that doesn't really matter, whatever. So let's listen to Jacob Wolf. I mean, should I explain his background? I don't know. I think I should. If anybody there has Emmanuel Godson, I have to get in touch with you. Never mind, right? We don't need to talk about it here, but I have to get in touch with you. I'll be on to you soon. This guy Wolf. Oh God, I should know more about him. If I go into Burkean here in front of you, there we go. I wish the Burkean would just explain. They will in this article here. They'll explain who he is. Jacob Wolf is acting head of the Trinity College Jewish Society, as well as an activist with People Before Profits famously active Trinity branch. He approached our undercover reporters early in the project, offering to provide intel on the conservative right in Trinity. Okay, so that's someone said they've missed 20 missed calls on their phone from you. I hope that's not me. I don't call anyone 20 times, right? Unless it's some accident happens in my pocket. I'll barely call you once, like, not to mind 20 times. So where was I? Okay, so that's Jacob Wolf. That's who he is. But I'm telling you, lads, if you haven't heard this one, it's just unreal. Okay, so let's go.
Hello, Jacob, is it?
Yes, this is Ryan.
Hi, yeah, Ryan. Yeah, so I was going to call you anyway.
Yeah, there's something else. Just give me a minute to go outside and then we can chat.
Sorry, what? Oh, yeah. Cool. Yeah, far away.
Okay, I'm back now.
Cool. So just the sort of protocol we have, just to kind of ring our sources, just like get acquainted with them, get a sort of background on sort of their analysis that they've done. So I think we were looking at your Twitter account and you're really legit. But
there you go. That's what I was talking about. We think you're legit, and then the ego goes into overdrive, and you just lose all sense of probity.
Yeah, so I assume you're sort of coming from a sort of left background, or?
You mean like left-wing socialist background?
Yeah, it's like ourselves, we're primarily sort of left Republicans, kind of a few anarchists, but and it's always curious to sort of different ideologies.
I'm basically, I guess, broadly aligned with left. I mean, my politics are kind of a mix of different things, but basically I'll work with pretty much whoever, as long as they want to make things better. Like I got the cards, I've done the quick.
I think he's kind of British, and I think he's got a bit of a speech thing where he maybe repeats words and has this strange thing going on. The latter of which I don't hold against him in the slightest. I'm gas, aren't I? Very funny.
Groups like Bank that does some fundraising for like the abortion rights campaign back when that was a thing involved in People Before Profit.
It's really hard to understand what he's saying. I think that's somewhat the audio, but I think it's also just him a little bit. I'm sorry about that. It kind of gets clearer at certain points,
Let's go group. Okay. But in general, I follow a philosophy of just work with whoever you need to work with, and try not to be too sectarian.
Yeah, that's more thing. Like we know what we're fighting against, kind of whatever like Republicanism.
He doesn't want to be too sectarian, so I think the big enemy, again I say it facetiously or whatever, but fascism, right? That's his big guiding principle. So, and you will see this emerge more over this discussion with Jacob Wolf. He seems to, it's kind of like left, right. He is left, but there's other things. It seems like there's one big thing or something, a kind of uniting thing. Maybe that has to be making his worldview coherent, or his kind of friend-enemy distinction coherent, because, there are so many contradictions. I'm like struggling to work it out, because like he's one position, but he's kind of another position as well, and it's just really weird. But that's just that.
Whatever side of the divide is, we know what we're fighting against. But do you have any experience sort of anti-fascism before this moment? Obviously, PPP has a sort of anti-racial line and things.
In terms of experience,
Someone asks me, do I still have it on 1.25? I'll slow it down, and if you want me to put it back to 1.25, you tell me that. It's on normal now, okay?
I've done some affiliation with some Jewish groups
Good. I thought I'm the chair of the Jewish Society in my college, which kind of informs my socialism in quite a few ways.
Mm-hmm. So his Jewish Society membership informs his socialism. Okay. I don't know why or what, but maybe some of the chat know. Or maybe there's some kind of history to that or whatever. Some people say stuff about like the Bolshevik Revolution or whatever, but I haven't read anything about that, so I don't know. Sorry, I'm just playing with my mic. Okay, so anyway.
Ways that notably is in terms of like I'm considering doing a master's at PhD on specifically something around anti-Semitism and how it empowers the far right and racist narratives and class consciousness, because basically I just think that's important because there aren't a lot of people in Ireland who would have I guess an in-depth knowledge of that, since it's there's so few of us. Yeah. But looking at the when I started doing this, I just started looking at the people who make up like the Irish far right and noticing
the Irish far right. I know the audio is bad on this one because he's kind of weird, and the mic on the actual original interview isn't weird, and then it's translating through to my mic indirectly. Someone said he has a potato in the mouth accent. It kind of is, yeah. Or it's kind of like a load of like white chocolate, the way that makes you kind of, no, it's more potato in the mouth actually. Or just like, do you know what it's like? You've been punched in the face, or you've just left the dentist.
Over and over again, that all the language they use is basically stuff they got from the American or sometimes European far right view. It's so generic, generic. Great to play replacements, Soros. You saw yourself deportioning. Like, these people have like 4 brain cells between them. It's the same. Yeah. We actually do need a computer program to they're so generic. Like
you know what I love about the guy who's doing the honeypot, the interviewer, is that he's so good at. He's clearly a bit of a right-wing nationalist of some description, right, judging by the Burkean, but he so understands the other side. And he understands their view of his side and his view of their view of his side of their view. Do you know that kind of thing? He gets it, right? And I think a lot of us do. But JayQ, so it must be J, must be like J, Quinton or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, says asks me, do I take Collins? I don't. I wouldn't know how. I might. I don't know. But I wouldn't know how. I don't know. Maybe I can figure out I can barely do this. So, we'll take it bit by bit. So, what else does Jacob Wolf have to say?
So bad. Yeah. But, yeah. Oh, yeah. I know exactly. Like in Ireland, it's just like shooting fish in a barrel, but like it's a job that has to be done. But exactly. Thankfully, they don't have like the insane like money and the establishment backing they have, and
I'm glad he said that. Thankfully, they don't have the insane money and backing and all that stuff, right? Because one of the things charges they will throw at us is, where do you get your money from? And all these people who have these politics, and it's kind of like, we just have these politics. Actually, we're the only ones, probably, as far as I can see, looking around me, except for some there. I do believe there's a genuine Sinn Féin support element. Maybe misguided, but it is there. But like, aside from a lot of that, I don't see many people, even some of these like LGBTQ activists, right? Say what you want about LGBTQ and all that, but it's just the activists themselves. Most of them, I know, they're always standing in front of, these kind of little things they have at events, conferences. They're kind of like professionally printed signs, vertical on a kind of a thing. And all of this stuff, and a table, basically a hotel conference and all of that, with all the bells and whistles, right? They seem to always constantly be at one of them. And this and that, and they were coordinated for like whatever NGO group or whatever. They don't like come up with that money, or they don't like harvest enough crops and sell them for money, and then that's or some kind of productive way of that money just comes down right at them. So it seems like everybody's getting paid, as far as I can see, with small exception, except for the far right. Because look, I'm a member or whatever of this kind of nationalist movement. I don't accept the derogatory phrases to describe that, but I would be, if anyone is a kind of part of that, And I can tell you, like, unless I'm really missing something and there's a fast one being pulled on me from everywhere and it's like the Truman Show, then there's no money going around. Some people get super chats and subscriptions and whatever, which is completely legitimate. But in terms of this kind of big money, I'd actually, the way it is, I wouldn't necessarily have anything against it in principle at this point, because that's how the game seems to be played. But just as it happens, there is none. And he's admitted it here in secret. But in public, they will tell you, it's Steve Bannon and all this stuff, right? Millions. Oh, they're so funded.
Other countries, I guess, it's our job to keep it that
Russians,
way.
yeah.
So beyond that, would you have any sort of anti-racist or any other experience beyond that? Or?
Any other experience? Like I said, I mostly started doing left-wing activism in college. I've done some work with.
The migrants. Yeah. I was asking for Censor conference a while back. They're a good sort.
You know what? I'm going to skip. I think I've lost a few viewers there. I'd say that's either bedtime or else it's getting boring, and I can't tell the difference between which one it is because it is late. I might skip to the end here. I just want to get, because someone pointed it out in the chat, the funny bit with Laura Beston, and I'll be honest with you, the whole time I've been streaming, and even before I came on, one thing was lodged firmly in my mind, which was this funny little quip that the guy doing the honeypot did to Laura Beston, who is the Trinity Student Union president or whatever. And it's just funny. And I just want to get to that. And we've talked enough. We've done a lot. So if I can just get to that, I think I'd be happy. And I'd go to sleep a happy man. So let's just hear, just to expedite things. Here's the thing, right? You can go to the Burkean on YouTube tomorrow or tonight and listen to this in full. You don't need me to do that with you. Let's listen to the conclusion, let's say, because that's usually where it gets pretty spicy.
It's a good way to sort of nip into the bud. Like I'm repeating myself, but So any beyond that, would you have any sort of like resources? Or obviously you're a great researcher. We have to give you that. Like,
amazing, love it, great researcher. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheers. In terms of resources, my main resource is just connections with Jewish groups, and just the ability to, because you know yourself being on the left, anti-Semitism gets weaponized against us so often, which I'm just really tight.
So it's connections with Jewish people and Jewish groups. It sounds like an anti-Semitic canard to me, but anyway, it's okay.
Especially when the people do have like a lot of anti-Semitic connections themselves.
Yeah.
My main resource is looking at from a, I guess, Jewish point of view, and I guess highlighting that this is all coming directly from anti-Semitic sources. Like the main thing I'm working on right now is tracing the origins of the white genocide slash.
It's great about neo-Nazi websites like Stormfront and all that, but you know yourself. I guess talking ahead here, but so we'll be in touch probably in sort of New Year. But I think on the Twitter account we've done that with some sort of we're going to start doxing people. I'm going to give out any sort of names you can send on. Names and pictures. Names, pictures, employment details, and we can tweet out. We can nail them. Get the fuckers fired. Like,
I love when he starts cursing here. It's very good. You'll enjoy this.
It's
okay.
3 points for whoever gets the most fascist fucking fired. Like, really nail them. Like, just humiliate them, get them fucking fired. We'll probably hear a bit on fucking free speech.
Just threats them that shut up or you'll lose your job.
If you do, for every one you fucking nail, about 10 shut up. Like, but
exactly.
Exactly. What a prick. Again, he would have no issue. Like my analogy, people are talking about Keith Woods here. Woods is Iranian backed, and someone is saying Woods is not Iranian backed. I think maybe the person who said he was Iranian backed was being sarcastic or just kind of taking the piss a little bit. I don't know. Maybe I'm off, but this guy would have no problem. Like, you work in a chipper slaving over a greasy thing for 12 hours a day, and you just happen to think we shouldn't become a minority in the country, or you you have basically an opinion that in normal life most people would be like, I don't know, agree or disagree. It's normal enough opinion. He'd have you fired from that, right, and have your kids starve. My fan in my computer is starting to heat up. Sorry about that. Nothing I can do.
I'll be speaking to you again. We'll probably any sort of like minds we can sort of organise into sort of a broad-based sort of group. I assume WhatsApp will be applicable, but sometime in the new year we'll set up a sort of group to sort of get these fuckers. But yeah,
Great.
I'll be in touch.
Really glad you're doing this.
Oh man, it's so good the way they kiss. I'm just gonna call him Honeypot, right? Which is sounds like a strange pet name, but the guy who's doing it, the way Honeypot just takes this kind of crushing Chad alpha victory over these guys by bringing them in and making such fools of them. That alone gives me immense pleasure. The way this guy is actually in the throes of like admiration and kind of sycophantism for Honeypot, is just so joyous of a thing. Thank you. I really appreciate what you're doing. And none of them had the brain cells to think, what's going on here? Like, why, and to just use the classic stages of verification, trust and but verify and all that. Idiots.
Any further details, names, whatever, just send on and we'll make use of pass the people that can stop these fuckers around if need be. But yeah, pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, you too, Ryan.
You too, Ryan. Rian, I think is what this Honey Potter calls himself. There's this guy. Can I just say there's this guy here who, wow. I haven't listened to this one and I don't think I will because it's too much. But let's have a look. Let's just have a little peek.
Sorry.
Look at that. That is not... I don't really want to be mean, actually. I'll leave it off. So he is, they don't say in the video description. Come on, Burkean. Put in the video description for me. Go on, will you? I wonder what he says. Let's catch the last minute. How about that?
Sure. My email is...
Actually, yeah, I'll send you one.
TCD, Trinity College Ethnic Minority Officer. Imagine being an ethnic minority officer. This guy, he's, again... I actually almost agree that if there's going to be something as preposterous, he's spaced out. Someone said that. I think he has SSRI stare going on. Which, look, if you need them, you need them. If you think they're good for you, ask your doctor, whatever, right? But he has the stare. There's 1,000 yard kind of distance going on in there. But and maybe there's the kind of I don't know. I think a hike would be good. A hike and a couple of pints afterwards and a bit of crack out in the countryside. Do that once in a while. I think it'd do him well. But ethnic minority officer, if there is going to be such a ridiculous thing as that, and I'm going to sound like a leftist and you could castigate me or whatever, right? But if there is going to be such a thing as that, you may as well have an ethnic minority running it, right? If it's going to be identity politics based or whatever based on that, I can actually agree with some of these kind of intersectionals who would maybe make the same point as me. Why is this like to call him white is an understatement. He's proper white, right? He's full on white man, and he's running this thing. I mean, the kind of levels of weird in-group, what's the word? Out-group preference and this kind of weird masochism but it is just power, really it is, because if you're in a corporation of some description, right? I don't know if you're in these yourselves or whatever, but if you're in a corporation or another, one of the best things you can do for cred, to work your way up the ladder and kiss hole and all that, is the diversity group or the diversity society or the equality society or whatever, right? That is the whole kiss thing that you do. So it is a path to power. Also beyond anything else, but it's also just a twisted kind of ideology. So what does he say?
Our email in your own time if you want to. Cool, that's perfect. Yeah. So any like minds? Obviously, we want to. There's a particular project we want to contact Beston with. Obviously, we can do the things you guys can't. But yeah, you're 100% behind us with regarding anti-fascism. Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect. Send on names and we'll pass on our details, and we'll have a few projects to approach you guys with. Sort of, hopefully when college gets back. But yeah, pleasure talking.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Fun.
Okay.
Okay.
That guy sounded to me, oh my God, YouTube recommending Sean Hannity to me. One part of, just as a side note, a part of me wanted to sign out of my YouTube account just because there's nothing crazy to hide or anything, but just because, your personal little things, your recommendations, your this, your inbox, your that, there's a kind of level of anyone who's streaming online with their screen shared, you should be a little bit mindful, right, of what goes up. And I thought, yeah, I'll sign out of my Twitter, sign out of my YouTube just for kind of best practice type of vibe. And then I thought, I don't need, because I don't know, maybe it'll suggest something. I don't watch anything weird or crazy anyway, but it's just, it's just a little insight into my world that shouldn't be available too much in public, which is just everything to do with my personal YouTube account, notifications, recommendations, whatever. And then I thought, recommendations, come on. The algorithm has started recommending Sean Hannity to me, a bit of Douglas Murray, loads of Nigel Farage. I constantly find myself, I could be watching a Keith Woods video, right? Think of Keith Woods, right? Out there, esoteric, radical enough. And I go from watching that to Nigel Farage. So it's quite funny that. So I don't have to worry about recommendations because it's going to be Fox News anyway. It doesn't matter, right? Now, the one final one, and I'm actually going to leave it there because, look, we've done well. It's been a nice evening. Just Laura Beston. What I will do is, I'm actually not going to link it in the chat because I want to go to bed in a sec. And I think I have to say as well is that linking is important and all that, but at the same time, sometimes, you go, if I'm talking here about Laura Beston, Burkean, you know what I mean? Obviously, you pull open a tab with YouTube and you go Laura Bestian, or whatever her name is, Bestiality, but Beston and Burkean, and you find it, right? You find it yourself plenty well enough. I'm sure you guys are far better at interneting than me. I can barely set up this stream. But you know what I'm saying? You can look it up yourself afterwards, all you like. But
if need be,
you can look it up all you like in full, whether you want to listen to it or not. I just want to say that because Burkean deserves the credit of this video is really, really, really good. And I should actually be going through all 11 minutes of it. Do you know what I'm going to do? One last thing. See, I feel like you're only going to see someone says good night. Yeah. Someone says it's Saturday, stay on for half an hour. It says this J. Quinton, right? I'm going to assume his name is Quinton. JQ. He only gives the first letter of his second name. Really weird. But so I'm just laughing at you here, or laughing with you. I'm not laughing at you. But should I do the Laura Beston video in full? It's 11 minutes, or should I just take maybe some of the peachy moments? It's Sunday, someone says. Yes, technically it is. When am I back? I don't know. It's coronavirus. I'm going to have a little bit more time and, whatever. I mean, if you're up, you're up. And it doesn't need to be... A while ago, I was kind of kvetching because I lost a few viewers, but whatever, to be honest. If there's a few there, there's a few there. And I have the energy. So let's listen to Laura Beston. All these people are very good climbers. You all knew them growing up. You all know them now. There's a kind of a, if only their energy was directed better, because of course they have to be aspiring people and quite, maybe a bit enigmatic and ambitious and driven. I'm not saying they're totally pulled from on high. They have to have some good, life ability going on as well, right? Such a waste. In a normal society, what they could be, their ambition, whether it's ruthless ambition, whether it's what's the word? Altruism, whether it's some mix of both of those things, whatever it is, that energy could be moved towards somewhere positive, but it's moved in this power hungry kind of, and power hungry is one thing, but perverse and kind of anti-country, anti-natal, anti-health, anti-life, anti-beauty. It's moved towards all of these things in a kind of a strange way. Even the ones who are kind of normal, the ones who are kind of Neves and Siobhans, end up kind of being nudged in that direction by the system itself. It's kind of sad, because she could be all right. Bring. Pay attention here, right? Because she's going 1 second, whatever, and listen to what she describes. She's like, just a quick issue here. She'll tell you it's very funny because it's relevant.
Hello, Laura, is that?
Sorry, my earphones were connected to my phone still, and I had to put through the case. Sorry about
No, that's very, very common occurrence. Yeah, this is Reid from Irish Students Against Fascism. Just wondering if you have a few minutes to talk. Obviously, you said you were fairly busy.
Yeah, sorry, I have a few minutes. I was on my way to the loo, so it'll be grand.
I'll have 10 minutes max, trust me.
Thanks.
Yeah, so just a basic introduction of who we are and what we do. We're mainly sort of a student group, not a student group, mainly sort of the north of Ireland, and we're sort of reaching out to sort of...
Sorry, interrupting is what I do. It's the whole reason I'm here, right? If it weren't doing this, you'd be watching the video yourself, so forgive me. The thing about her that's interesting, I think, just to bear in mind if you haven't already, is that some of the other ones were weirdos. The pencil necks, checking my own neck now, and it's a bit on the pencil-y side, whatever, but look, you know, some of them are weirdos. They are, as I say, you know, genetic dead ends. They are weird. They are maladjusted, kind of bullied pretty badly in school, which I don't wish on people, but just it can have kind of adverse, poisonous consequences of itself. And they are those people, right? And they have this kind of vibe about them. And that's one thing, but she is normal. This is a normal, like I say, she's a Niamh or a Siobhan, or you could potentially even call her a Laura, right? She's grand, right? She's sound out, normal, healthy, you know, whatever. But yet, because of the powers, and there would always be those weirdos, those aforementioned weirdos, right? Those haters of anything good for the sake of being good. They will always exist. Poison always exists. But the problem is when you have... Laura appears to me to be well adjusted and healthy, are getting dragged by power incentives toward this kind of ideology and point of view, and kind of vicious kind of slap fascists around. I'm going to spoiler alert, slap them around. The usual Burkean video thing here, right? It's always interesting, it's always novel, but there are themes that emerge here. She pretty much agrees to most of it, as far as I can tell. So this kind of horribleness, like I said a while ago, the consequences of beating someone up who you don't know, and even worse, advocating someone else beat someone up who you don't know on your behalf while you keep your powder dry and all that. So the actual moral issues of it, and then just the perversity of their ideology, you know, which I've kind of rambled on too. For someone who appears healthy and appears well adjusted like her, and I don't mean to deny her agency of herself, but I can tell, dragged towards that world by... unless there's some personal issue I'm not aware of, right? Superficially, my take is that she's pretty well adjusted, she's pretty healthy and normal. And yet the power elite and the system itself and the incentives and the kind of disincentives, the carrots and sticks and all of that it sets up, leads her into that place where to be this is how I do better and how I excel. And if you doubt that, she's president of Trinity College, whatever, SU, right? And all that. And long may it continue, or long will it continue. We assume, with all these other things and positions and invites to this and that and everything else, right? From above. It's not that it's popular, it's that it's given from above. A narrow elite. It's given by them. That to me is sad. It's worse than the weirdos to me. I think you get my point.
People in sort of student government and people in sort of civic society build a sort of informal, discrete sort of network to combat the far right on campus. Like so far, we've sort of been had some projects with the USI, with sort of strong progressive voices and sort of student media and student government. But yeah, you'd be happy to sort of deal with us, as you said.
Yeah, and
Someone here says, "Oh my God, Jamie Maragini, you must be." I'm tempted to think you're someone quite close to me, almost, because I've been going on for a few days. I've been, as a personal joke at home, I've been joking just for no reason, just a random, you know, when you're at home with your friends or your family, you have these random kind of impersonal jokes that maybe they make no sense, but you have them. My thing has been like, I've been joking, just randomly saying going forward and in the interim and stuff like that. I have a few phrases like that I'm dropping into my everyday speech just for the crack. And, you know, what I'm taking the piss out of is this kind of posh kind of official kind of, if you're posh and you're in the D4 kind of set, that kind of elite set or whatever, or relate to them in some way. you say things like going forward or in the interim, right? And that's very funny that she said that. Because she probably is going to say it. Anyway.
It's kind of like, but it's really nice to know that that's something you guys are looking at, because I think when something happens, we don't necessarily know what is the best response, not because we don't want to, but because there's so much going on in terms of the workload of SUs that it's nice to have a resource we can turn around and go, okay, well, I know that like this is going to really upset the Indian students in my college.
So you can like turn around and go like, this is like really going to upset the Indian students in my college. What upsets the Indian students? First off, most like Indians are like hardcore Hindu nationalists, right? And they have no time for this stuff. Say what you want about them, but they have no time for this soft liberalism. Or not even, she would say, I'm not liberal, I'm a left progressive or whatever. That's basically liberal, right? That's directed by liberalism. Most Hindus have no, like Hindu nationalists, which plenty and many of Hindus are, have no time for that. They're all about friend-enemy distinction. They're all about tradition and certain values and all of that kind of stuff, right? They have no like psychological issue with that the way Westerns do. Yeah, last Rigel says Brahmins. I think you mean Brahmins. He says Brahms. I don't know. I could be wrong. Are the most based people on the planet. They are, right? That's the thing. I was speaking to Yoko from Japan. Now, I don't want to ascribe points of view to her, but if you actually understand the world and cultures, Japanese, this, that, Hindu, Muslim, like people don't like people look about Muslims and Islamic taking over and all that. But they're based, like they are based and from their point of view, right? So in a way, it's so strange, you know, this thing of my Indian students and whatever. It's that one. It's probably that one I made a video about early on there in my channel a while back. Sahubri Manubri or whatever, right? Not to sound like a jingoist there. I can't remember. I've seen that name a couple of times. I can't pronounce it. But that crazy lunatic who is just an absolute hater. I've made a video about it, right? The alarming growth of violent Irish racism, right? It's kind of a joke title, but she says Indian. She could be talking about her. I suspect maybe, but like just Indian students getting upset at what? At what? You say you don't want to become a minority. Talk to Hindus about that in India. I'll tell you now.
So I have a blank response I can give. I know I can alert the counselling services this is an issue, and I can maybe bring it to higher powers and be like, actually don't associate with what that's happening or whatever else, you know. Yeah. But a resource would be fantastic. Like a network would be.
A resource would be fantastic. Okay.
Brilliant, because we don't have that at the moment, and whereas USI do advise us on certain things, and when incidents happen, it's that case of like an incident happens straight away, and you're just like, I don't know what to do. Like so much happened over Christmas, like Australia, and then like just really awful things happening out in India, and you're like, how do we?
There's like really awful things happening out in India, and you're like, what are we supposed to do about this?
Respond to this sensitively is the big thing.
But regarding to the fascist work, as we kind of say, we can do this stuff. You guys can't. Obviously,
sometimes we're bound with like mandates and all that stuff as well.
Yeah, but you're a strong left voice. You came kind of recommended. But
Thanks.
Regarding anti-fascism, you're okay. Like what we do is sort of obviously confront.
More flattery. You're a strong left voice. You're legit. And actually, let's just do it. Let's just do a quick review of her reaction to that. It's just something you should be aware of in your own life. If you ever do a honeypot or just in general in life, it's so good that listen to her reaction
and all that stuff as well.
Yeah, but you're a strong left voice. You came kind of recommended. But
Thanks.
We're going. Anti-fascism, you're okay. Like what we do is sort of obviously confront the far right on the streets whenever need be. But what we're hoping to do is sort of catalog and sort of basically sort of I think the term is sort of docs the sort of far right approach employers, build sort of database for sort of activists. But like obviously we can give you guys full discretion, full plausible deniability, but you're happy to have this sort of relationship.
Yeah, perfect. That's like. It's so good when you just get...
Yeah, perfect. Plausible deniability, all of that. And I've kind of I've ignored it. I've just kind of been having fun for the last while because it's late, we're all a bit tired, whatever. But, I've been focusing on the little funny bits, I think, myself. But, like, in a way, I'm kind of ignoring the galling nature of it. She's like, yeah, just plausible deniability, whatever. That should be massive news. We have the TCDSU president, we have the USI president. So every one of them, right? The entire like deck of cards is involved, right? And they're all agreeing with it. They all refer to each other as I know them and they know that, and I can put you in touch with them. And yet we have like one or two articles. There isn't this big thing of news, right? Like, my God, there was your one a couple of years ago, the Catholic girl, Trinity. Was it Trinity? You can put her name in the chat anyway. She was hounded for being conservative or something like that, right? And she had and when I say Catholic, by the way, it's not like I'm Buddhist or something, right? I am myself, but you know what I mean. She was outwardly, that was kind of her thing. Yeah, she was hounded, and it was almost like there's a conspiracy where she's abusing her power and all of this. Yeah, Askoff or Askow or whatever, right? Askoff. I don't know how to say that name, lad. Sorry, but yeah, like she was hounded as if she was abusing a position or something, and it wasn't just some little university paper printing a thing on that. It was all over the place, right? It was on normal media and stuff. It was a big deal. Whereas this is that. I was going to say multiplied by 10 because 10 people are doing it, but she wasn't doing what one of these people are doing. She was doing, I don't think she was doing anything, actually. So these people are doing what was imagined Katie did, but they're all doing it together. It's not just one isolated incident, and it's loads of them. And there isn't, not only are they all like loads of them involved in it, there isn't really one of them that isn't involved in it, is the kind of issue. So just to emphasize that point, the obvious thing here, because I think I've ignored it a little bit.
To the stage of like groups like yourself, because then it means that, you know, we can support and back and maybe shoot a like or share something, but you know that like,
shoot alike.
You're all on solid ground, and it's not, you know, completely committing 100% to a cause by liking something. Yeah, so that's fine. That's perfect.
So you're 100%. Grand, Jack. Grand.
Yeah. Where's it all?
Grand. Yeah, so obviously goes without saying, you're Trinity based, so any sort of.
So the deal is that you punch random strangers for Laura Beston. Now, I'm not fully sure she's agreed to punching, so just like my disclaimer there. I think she may have. But anyway, that type of thing. You do that for me, and I'll shoot you alike.
Trinity seems to be probably, you know, more sort of a hotspot regarding campuses,
Yeah.
but like, just obviously this just kind of out of the blue, what kind of sort of far right would you have? Obviously, you have the Irish Freedom Party trying to get their talents in.
Get their talons in.
No, I'm still not sure of their status, or it's kind of because a lot of people have turned against them. But the Burkean Journal started here, like it's still an issue. There's still a group of people.
She has no idea that she's talking to the Burkean Journal. It's brilliant.
People that are there and very prominent. I would say that we are an interesting university because I think that sometimes we end up getting fascists onto campus far more regularly than others, and that's because of the presence of a few things. We have a lot of people who are professors and lecturers here who have a lot of money and want to bring someone here, and they don't think about how this can be perceived by other people. That causes problems. But then you've also got societies like the Phil and the HIST and Lostock and all that, and they're constantly going to bring in people that look good and sound good, and maybe there's an American person on the society and they suggested this person, but no one looked into it and didn't realise they were related to like a literal Nazi. You know, like this type, we just end up having that happen a lot more frequently, so I think it could be really interesting.
I mean, they're talking about I don't know what they're talking about, but I'd say they're talking about an American student who brings someone on. So I imagine, I'm just guessing, right? They would say, I think it's a good example. I'm sure Laura Beston can hit me up, slide into my DMs and tell me if I'm wrong, even though her account is currently on protected mode. But other than that, she can slide on into the DMs and tell me if I'm wrong here. But I think Steve Bannon would count as one of these, some American student or someone brought someone in to speak, or the Philosophy Society or the History Society, because in the interest of kind of, I suppose, intellectual rigor and bringing on people who represent different political forces of the times and all of that, right? Might accidentally bring someone like that in or whatever. I think Steve Bannon is a perfect kind of example there. Now, Steve Bannon is a representative of the Trump movement, the elected president of the USA. I think Trump is an absolute sellout for his immigration, for his base and stuff, right? Far from far right, or far from even nationalist or dissident right or any of that stuff, right? He's become, he is, and really in a way he always was, a kind of a reasonable president for a populist nationalist base, right? And Bannon was one of the figures of that kind of movement, and you know, she would consider him that, but like surely any university should have Steve Bannon in to talk, and if he was to come in, he would be questioned and debated and all of that. So he'd be like grilled like nobody else would, like everything hostile and all that, right? And like surely if you're not listening to that stuff, and I think people should listen to further, right? Further, people should listen to far out, right and left and everything, right? Bring it all in. If there's any place to do it, it's a university. But she would consider that far right. Someone there says a literal Nazi, to quote Ms. Beston, a literal Nazi. So somebody in their 90s from 1940s Germany, she means. Because that would be a literal Nazi, right? Anything else is like the person believes there should be less immigration, therefore they're a literal Nazi. At what point does this cartoonish image of the world kind of break down in their mind? It doesn't. It's a radical fantasy. That's what it is. It's ahistorical. It's weird.
Even if you want me to like find someone just to like document every time something is happening on our campus,
that's perfect.
It would be really cool to see when like it's definitely more contentious during term, but things do happen during summer.
Yeah, we were actually talking to name just escapes me, the ethnic and minority officer, Shay, I believe it is.
Yeah, Shay, yeah.
So you notice here that the honeypot guy is starting to mention some of their names to her and mention her name to others and stuff, which is very clever because it's demonstrating the active conspiracy, the fact that they all know each other and they can recommend each other and stuff like that. It's very good.
He's passing on hopefully some sort of relevant files that you guys keep track. But you mentioned sort of the Irish Freedom Party. They're not a society as it stands.
Oh God, no, we'll never. They're the ones who wanted to set up a pro-life society or something, aren't they?
Yeah, the sort of our exit group. So you guys can put the kibosh on that basically with the SU.
Oh no, this is the thing. Political societies can be set up. So we actually have several different fractions of capitations. The SU is one of those, but that means the societies are completely separate, and I don't have any like power over societies, although I can lobby and we can talk to student newspapers and student media. But yeah, like I mean, if a political party is valid and real, there's a possibility you'll be allowed to set up a fraction of that political party. It will have limitations compared to a political party, though. And I think these guys possibly tried, or with the way that they were.
Okay, she goes on and on, right? I'm gonna there is 5 minutes in it, but I'm just gonna skip through a bit. She mentions at one point, she might have mentioned it already and I missed it or whatever, but it's that kind of like, there is the issue of like rules and stuff. She's like, oh, there is the issue of rules, so we have to get around that, you know? It's just, looking at computers, inanimate computers. So just give me a 5x5 there, and kind of a re-updated 5x5 if you couldn't, or if you could, because the chat kind of went down as well. 5x5. Okay, was I gone for a second? Let me know if I was gone for a second. And 5x5. Okay, thanks. So yeah, she's fully grown enough, right, to be part, and she's in the arena, even if it is a student arena for now. And we know where she's going, or was going anyway. So I don't like, I can imagine someone saying that as an excuse, but it's like, it's not like some primary school here. Like, we're talking about adult. She's probably like, looks like, I don't know, 30 odd or whatever, right? But or maybe not, but like, you know, Yeah, they are part of this, and the key fact as well is that Burkean, insofar as I'm aware, are moving on to bigger things, as in bigger institutions. I think maybe Shannon and government and presidents and all this kind of stuff. They've got a lot going on, so this just happens to be part of their series, of which I intend to cover a lot of it, and this just is part of it. So no one give me the like, oh, leave the kids alone thing. They're not kids, and they're part of this.
They didn't get any sports drugs, so I don't think there's actually a risk.
Okay.
Where kids, and that would be where, and we even have an anti-racism work group that stems from that.
Yeah.
Is if you were extremely racist, they are and they aren't, so they still exist, and I think they're still posting things.
She's talking about the Burkean. She doesn't really say much of note. She's just talking about the Burkean to the Burkean. That's funny. So I'm going to kind of skip that a little bit.
What's going on there?
Yeah.
He's not your neoliberal. Deep down inside, he is a socialist. I know.
She's talking about like some guy there. Sounds like she has a crush for him. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. Trust me. Watch it yourself.
Just send you on some names of people in SUs who might be kind of.
Yeah, I was actually.
So send on names for people in SUs. It's all going on.
Lorna Fitz and Michelle Barron regarding this few projects we're running, but yeah, definitely any sort of like-minded people. But yeah, obviously one of the sort of projects we're going to be hopefully launching next month is a sort of website to sort of document people on the sort of conservative right, far right, etc. And begin to sort of we've been doing it harassing employers basically, like putting sort of pressure on them. Would you be good to sort of pass on any sort of names of people, or obviously if you know?
Yeah. So what exactly are you looking for now? Just so that I know 100%.
Yeah. And
now, forgive me, I'm a kind of a amateur psychologist or whatever. But part of me feels like, the way he's distracted her with the kind of flattery and all of that stuff, and obviously done some games behind the scenes to make themselves look real or whatever, right? But they're not real. And they're not a real far left group or whatever. I feel like by her tone towards the end, there's a bit of her. She can tell me in the DMs as well if she wants to. I feel like something about her tone which sounds slightly defensive and slightly confused, somewhere between those two things. I feel like even though her brain is clouded up with all the kind of the smoke and mirrors, and she's distracted and she's in the middle of it, and she's 10 minutes deep at this point and probably send messages too, right? So there's kind of no going back from it. A mix of maybe mild emerging panic, confusion, and distraction. There's a little bit of her brain, this kind of like person on a wheel, far off in the distance, behind the door, kind of being like, hello, hello, somewhere way off, this distant echo in a dream that is kind of saying to her, reminding her that there's something off. And I think she's getting it slightly there. There's something about her tone that I think feels that way towards the end, which would be a really funny experience. You're kind of subconscious starting to knock on the door towards the end, and then you go, shit. And you imagine that feeling where you hang up and you go, fuck, who is that guy really? I hope. And then all you can do is kind of, so that you're not stressed out the whole time, just go, God, I just better hope now, right? Because there's nothing else I can do. I feel like she's in that position as we approach the end. And then there's that funny line from the honeypot Burkean guy. So, and that'll be it then. Look, we'll sign off then and say goodnight.
Would you be good to sort of pass on any sort of names of people, or obviously if you know?
Yeah. So what exactly are you looking for now? Just so that I know 100%.
Yeah, names, course details, employers. Obviously, we want to cause cripple these people. Obviously, we're the kind of conduit to do the stuff you guys can't. But yeah, any sort of name you go to it, passing on or whatever. Cool. You're good. Yeah.
I'm not able to do that through the like global office, and that's Trinity, obviously. But I've got some friends over there that I might just talk to, so I find that like international students often encounter the most like.
Yeah. It's the intent is to just get these people fired or get these people feel the repercussions. But we're always here to reach out to. We're on Twitter. Hopefully, I'll have the website soon. But you have our email as well. But pleasure talking. Happy to do business. Yeah.
And anything else?
See, that's why I think she's got this strange, disoriented tone just towards the end, and she repeats, "Is there anything else you want?" or something. She repeats that kind of twice, and there's something a bit off about that. I think she's starting to pick up at the end. What the fuck am I doing here? But anyway, listen to this closing line from the Honeypot Burkean journal guy. It's excellent.
Before I go,
no, that's perfect. I'll leave you head back to the toilet. Okay. Have a good day. No bother. Have a good day. Bye.
Off back to the toilet with Laura. Okay, well, anyway, I think that's pretty much that. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to let you all go to sleep. You know what? I talked about coronavirus kind of at length earlier. You know, there's many different perspectives you can have on that. Is the curve going to be long, or is it going to be a stretch out, elongate the curve? All this kind of whatever, right? Talking about a virus and politics and all that. One thing I just want to say for you to remember, I think it's an unimpeachable point of view to have on this, and it's probably valuable. Just keep yourself healthy. You know, the way you can have a couple of weeks where you go really unhealthy, you're eating poorly, you're eating, and then a few weeks you're eating really well. Some weeks you don't exercise at all for a couple of months or something. And other times you're in the gym pretty well, you're drinking a lot of water. You're sometimes you don't sleep so well. Other times you get a good bit of sleep, and you know, all those things, it can vary at ebbs and flows, right? Try to be on the better side of all those things at the moment, and you could do a lot better. I'm no doctor, but I think that's definitely true. You know. Anyway, anything else in the chat there? I think that's about it. We might as well leave it, yeah. And if Emmanuel Godson is there, I will get on to you soon. Sorry, man. Because you left me a message a couple of days ago. I want to get back to you. Vitamin D. Oh yeah, vitamin D. Dr. John Campbell, who is a YouTube channel. He's a practicing doctor, or he's a doctor anyway. He's not some huckster. And he was going through a research, evidence-based, peer-reviewed, all that stuff. It's not some kind of hocus-pocus thing. Vitamin D, and I think maybe zinc, but anyway, you can to kind of look it up. But I think I personally have gotten, and it's not like I'm selling them online or something. I think vitamin D, I think zinc, but probably a lot of vitamins, and many of which, don't let anyone fool you, you will get from food as well. Maybe a supplement in vitamin D and zinc is good. But in general, just, you know, eat good food, eat well, to maybe throw a couple of pounds on. There'd be no harm for most of you anyway, as in the current situation. And exercise good. Go for walks, everything else. Yeah, that's about it. Check in the chat. You're all well, I think, and y'all probably need to go to sleep. All right, lads, take it easy and see you. Bye.